It's like, no.
Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Melayna, and I'm a practitioner here at Dharma Bum Temple. And today I'm going to be leading us through a bit of Metta, or loving kindness practice. But before we get into the meditation, I want to talk a little bit about why we practice loving kindness, why it's so important, and why Metta practice sort of affects our lives. I know for me personally, before I started practicing, I was a very angry person. I was very frustrated. I was trying to control and manipulate everything in my world to what I wanted, and as if that was something that was possible, which, as many of us have found out, it's not. And I like to think about the quote from the Buddha, who said, "We are not punished for our anger, we are punished by it." This is why it's one of the three poisons: anger, ignorance, and greed. But today I want to focus on anger because that's where I'm at today. Now loving kindness, the root of loving kindness is generosity. We have to be generous with who we're giving loving kindness to, why we're giving loving kindness, how much loving kindness we're putting out. And that's why it's sort of the root of the practice. In fact, it's the root of all of the four Brahma-viharas, of which loving kindness is the first. So you have loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. Loving kindness, of course, generosity with our kindness. Compassion, I would say, is being generous with our patience. Appreciative joy is being generous with our gratitude. And equanimity, more patience, I think. Patience is really the key, I think. And then when we practice loving kindness, we do, throughout the meditation, there's different parts, different things that we do. First, we send loving kindness to ourselves, which is usually one of the most difficult. Often the words we have toward ourselves are the most harsh, the most critical. And meeting ourselves with a spirit of gentleness and kindness and patience and forgiveness is often incredibly difficult. We very much want to punish ourselves when things do not go the way we like them to. And hold ourselves, I would say, almost more accountable than we should for things we've done in the past. Yes, take responsibility for any harm you've caused, please. But don't carry it with you as sort of like this badge of, I'm a bad person and I will always be a bad person. Buddhism teaches us anything, it's that we are of the capacity. Everyone is of the nature, not the capacity, the nature to change. And so we are not stuck in the stories that we tell ourselves. And that, of course, relates to our attachment to the stories that we've told ourselves. If we tell ourselves that I did this one bad thing, and now I'm going to carry that with me for the rest of my life, then that is going to cause us suffering. Attachment to that story is going to cause us suffering. In the next part of the meditation, you send kindness to a benefactor, someone you care about, someone you love. And in this part of the practice, what I like to do is find someone in my life that I may not appreciate as much as I should. I know personally this can be very hard for me. My family has never been one to show a lot of emotion. And when they show me acts of love and they show me acts of kindness, I find myself very overwhelmed. But when I sit in this practice, I can stop that reactivity a little bit more. Now I don't cry so much people notice. Now I just have a couple tears running down my face when people help me, show me gratitude, show me love, and show me kindness. And I like to offer that gratitude Usually it's to the person who's helped you most recently, but you can offer to anyone in your life. The next part of the meditation today we're going to do is to offer loving kindness to someone who is neutral. So showing gratitude and kindness for the grocery store clerk, the postman, the people that we may not necessarily recognize in our lives, but people that exist. They're in this world. They're also suffering alongside us, whether we know it or not. And we should offer them the gift of kindness as much as we can. Now, the next part of the meditation is usually most difficult for most people. It's when we start thinking about someone and offering kindness to someone we find difficult in our lives. Now, with this, it is definitely best not to pick your nemesis. Not pick the most evil person you can think of. Do not, do whatever you want. But I definitely recommend someone who's just mildly irritating. Someone that you, when they walk in the room, you're like, this guy again. Because they also deserve kindness. They're likely I would say 99%, not trying to offend you in any way. And it's just something about them that you don't like. So offering them kindness is going to be really beneficial because, actually I'm going to save that point for later. And then after that, let's see, it's benefactor, neutral. And then after that, we're going to offer loving kindness to all living beings, whether they be animal, whether they be human, whether they be insect, whatever. No being on this planet wishes to suffer. They all wish to be happy. They all wish to be healthy. They all wish to be safe, and they all wish to be at ease. And so that's what we're going to do today. And the reason we do that, the reason we practice Metta, is so that we can carry it out to the world. We don't practice just to come back here and practice it again. We practice it so that when we are met with conflict, when we are met with that difficult person or that neutral person or somebody that maybe we didn't pay enough attention to, we now have this habituated behavior of kindness. And we can call on that and use that and not be caught up in our reactions, our anger, our frustration. Instead, the reflex, hopefully, after we flex a few kindness muscles, do a couple kindness squats a day, we can be kind to people as a reflex instead of having to, hold back, take that time, but always take the time. Feeling anger and frustration, always take that time away, because it is always best to meet someone with kindness, compassion, understanding, and wisdom than it is to meet them with anger, hatred, frustration. Because I think we all know that anytime you've been in an argument and nobody wants to back down and everyone is trying to prove their point and smashing their heads together, nobody's being convinced of anything. Those are my 2 cents on that to get us started. But I think with that, I will go ahead and lead us into the meditation. Is there anyone here who's brand new to meditation? Okay. All right. Sweet. But I will offer a couple tips that I personally enjoy. One is posture. I always try to keep my posture very erect. I tend to imagine that there's a string connected to the back of my head, holding my spine up the ceiling. Another thing I do is if my mind wanders, I will imagine I'm shooting laser beams through my eyelids, because often when my mind starts to wander, my eyeballs start rolling all around in my head, and that's non-ideal, but perfectly acceptable and okay. So with that, I'll start with 3 invitations of a bell. I'll finish with 3 invitations of a bell. I'm going to guide you through this in sort of, little segments to go through the loving kindness. I'm going to try to keep it brief. I'm not going to speak as much as I normally like to. But like to give us time to spend some time with ourselves and spend some time in Sangha and just sort of send as much kindness as we can muster out into the world. With that, I will go ahead and get started. And no fear, I am setting a timer, but one of the benefits of having hearing aids is that I'm the only one that can hear. So we'll remain quiet. Settle into a comfortable position and begin to notice your breath. Take note of each in-breath and out-breath. And now, without expectation, without judgment, without condition, send the feeling of loving kindness to yourself. Repeat the phrases. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. Now, bring to mind a benefactor, a friend, companion, a partner, someone you care about. Recognize that they are a being that desires to live without suffering, without expectation, and without condition. Offer them these phrases. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Now, let go of this person and bring to mind a neutral person, someone you don't know very well, someone you might see at the grocery store, the library, or walking down the street in the morning. Without expectation, without condition, offer them these phrases. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. let this person go. And bring to mind a difficult person. Perhaps not the most difficult person you know. Someone who is annoying, irritating. Someone maybe you find generally unsavory. This person, like you, desires to be free from suffering. So now, without expectation, without condition, offer this person these phrases. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Now, let this person go and begin to expand your awareness to all beings in all directions. Just as you wish not to suffer, all beings also desire not to suffer. Now, offer them the phrases, may all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings live with ease. As you gently bring your awareness back to the room, take a moment to thank yourself for your practice today. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. free to take a moment to slow and move around. Stretch a little bit. Change your seating position. Kind of take note of how you're feeling. You feel different than you did before. Anyone else sort of just feel like sitting here in silence for the next 20 minutes? Loving kindness practice is always very difficult to me to begin with. But as I started to see my life change, and the ways I approach the world change, I started to practice it more. And actually, it became less of, it was sort of something I forced myself to do and something I actually wanted to do. So with that thought, go ahead and open the room up a bit. Questions, comments, thoughts you have about meditation, questions about loving kindness, or even other questions related to Buddhist practice. Happy to help. And if you're watching online, welcome. I apologize for not welcoming you sooner, but I hope you enjoyed the meditation. If you have any questions, comments, please type them in the chat box, and I will do my best to acknowledge and answer them.
So what changes have you seen in your life since, I guess, practicing either meditation or Buddhism, or perhaps more specifically loving kindness?
What was the question?
Like, what changes have you seen in your own life? You mentioned you've seen some changes.
Sorry, hearing impaired. So for those watching at home, the question is, what changes have I seen in my own life with regards to Buddhist practice and loving kindness practice? I know for me personally, my patience has grown considerably. As I said earlier, I was definitely quick to argue with people, and that came from a lot of things. I excelled very early on in academics, and when you're in sort of those circles, somebody's got to play one side of the argument, and someone's got to play the one that's not so popular. And I was always a big fan of being the one that's not so popular because it's much more fun to argue. But when you take that out of an academic context and you take it into the world, people do not like that. And what I've sort of, what's come to me is that I just kind of let people speak. I don't interrupt them before they're finished. One of the greatest gifts I've ever been given is when I got these hearing aids 6 months ago, and I actually gained the ability to listen to people instead of just looking at their faces or hoping for context cues. And just letting people say their piece and not necessarily having to respond to every little thing. Just because I have a response doesn't mean it needs to come out of my mouth. You take an extra step. You can have a thought. Have the thought. The thought's gonna happen. The thoughts are gonna come. It's just like we're doing silent meditation. The thoughts come, and you let them kind of wash over you. It's the same thing you can do in conversation. You don't have to necessarily say, "You're wrong," and I'm gonna tell you all the reasons why. And if you don't listen to me, I'm gonna cut you down. And that's sort of the way I went through life before. And now I'm more patient. I'm willing to listen. I understand that what I view as ignorance, their ignorance, I'm sure they view me as ignorant in lots of ways, is not there specifically to frustrate me and make me angry. Most of the people who offend you on a day-to-day basis are not trying to. You know, the guy that cuts you off in traffic, he's probably just trying to get to work early, or he's late for work and he cuts you off. He's not being like, that guy over there in the Honda Civic, I'm gonna get him today. Like, that's usually not what's happening. And just finding more forgiveness for people, forgiving people for things they do wrong. Because I think, and has anyone in this room ever not do anything wrong in their entire life? Nobody? All right, cool. I don't have to call anyone a liar today. But yeah, we've all done things that have harmed someone else, whether intentional or not. And finding forgiveness when people do is really important, because giving them that kindness of forgiving them. Like, forgiving them is, you know, you forgive someone for yourself, not for them. But giving them that forgiveness is one of the kindest things we can do for ourselves, for the people. And, you know, it doesn't mean you have to sit there and have lunch with a person. And if they've offended you, like, I'm going to go, like, you know what, you suck. I'm going to have lunch with you every single day as like practice. But you can say, I'm not going to let this continue to affect me. And if they continue to act in this way, I'm going to do a kindness to myself and not be in their presence. But I don't have to make them a villain. I don't have to meet them with hatred. And they don't have to become evil in my eyes. They're not, you know, it's not, they say the Bodhisattva, part of the Bodhisattva vow is being unaffected by praise or blame, and being unbothered by things as they come at you, and not having that reactivity. You know, we want so much to, you know, it's part of the ego, is reacting to the world as like if you're the only lens that exists. And through kindness and compassion, we can understand that there are other lenses, there are other views that exist. And our force and our anger and our hatred is never going to change someone else's view. Thank you.
I got one. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the quote from the Buddha is before speaking, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it kind? Is it necessary? And is it true? My question is how can you integrate that into society? Because I find when I try to act like that, when I try to think like that, like I'm paralyzed, you know, because the world is so fast. Like I can't stop, respond. People think I'm being rude by not responding. It's difficult to integrate in how fast the world goes today.
To paraphrase your question, it's difficult to integrate kindness because of the speed of the world.
Roughly, yeah. I can speak up too if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
How fast is it moving right now?
Pretty slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did we get there?
Meditating.
We cultivated it. We created that environment in our lives. The reason we practice it in sort of, sorry, I'm far too loud for my own good right now. Like, in my great effort to hear your question, I am now blowing my ears out. Come on now. Yes. Okay. So we practice like this so that we can sort of, like I was saying earlier, like kind of flex that muscle, you know. And I know it's difficult to take the time when we're in the moment, in heat of something, but I mean, for me personally, it really only takes a pause, like a single breath. And you know, if people think you're being rude by not immediately coming back at them with a response, partially that's on them, because you can't change how people are going to react to you. You can only go into the world with the intention of kindness and the intention of goodwill and the intention. And then when they get frustrated with you or they find you to be rude, we offer them patience and kindness and forgiveness. I know the world is rapidly speeding up. It's not something I'm going to deny. You know, I mean, I'm well versed in the idea of the singularity. Like as we get more technology, we get more and more technology, and then it continues on until eventually, you know, we're living under Skynet. But having, the ability to think through meditation, we cultivate the ability to react better. It's not necessarily going to be perfect. It's not going to happen 100% of the time. We're still going to have moments where we have to react quickly, and we will react quickly. Fight or flight is a real thing. And I personally have a really strong fight or flight, and I just pass out under pressure. Like, I'm just gone. Like, I was like, we're out of here. So I understand that, but it just takes time and practice. And there's a practice, I hope I say her name right, Sophie Sensei from Hidden Valley. She was here. I didn't go this last time she was here, but the time before, she talked about something called titration, where you kind of, so what you could do is you could take this loving kindness practice and take it into scenarios that are faster and faster paced. Start with something that's really slow and easy. A great one is if you're dealing with some sort of bureaucratic service, like the post office or the DMV, because those things are going to move very slow, and the interactions you have are going to be very prescribed. But those interactions make us incredibly angry and frustrated at times because of how slow they go. Practice giving love and kindness in that moment, in that scenario that's very prescribed and very slow, and then maybe take it into another scenario that's maybe a little faster. I have a hard time with this at work. I work in food service, so sometimes things are moving so fast, and I'm doing 25 things simultaneously. And, I get a service complaint. The mac and cheese took 10.5 minutes, and it's supposed to take 8.5 or whatever. I know that's not about the mac and cheese. And so I have to take a moment, instead of being like, you know what, you can just wait. I can be like, I'm very sorry about that. How can I make that better? And that literally only takes a second to turn on. But yeah, I know it can be difficult, and that's why we practice. Is that it's not going to get easier until it does. And it's not going to become automatic until it is. And that's pretty much, yeah, that's the way it goes. You're very welcome.
When you were talking earlier, you were talking about arguing in college or grad school or something. What were you studying?
Arguing what?
You were talking about arguing in college.
My bachelor's degree is in anthropology.
Oh.
And I was in a class called Race, Ethnicity, and Identity. So that can always be, there's a lot of contentious subjects in that class. But yeah, so it was a very, I studied over here at CSU, and it was, I studied under a woman who is she was at the time the head of the Chicano Studies department in the CSU system, overall. And we had some very intense discussions, and everyone, I inevitably found myself where everyone was on one side because they were too afraid to argue the other side. And I was like, well, this is for educational purposes. So that's where we end up. But I really enjoyed doing it. And so I needed to kind of find a way to not fully incorporate that into my life. Because once you graduate, nobody cares anymore.
So you did a bachelor's degree in anthropology? You did a bachelor's degree in anthropology?
I do.
That's cool.
Thank you. The coolest part about it is that it was signed by Arnold Schwarzenegger. So that's the coolest part of that. Was worth every penny right there. So I'm definitely using that degree right now. I mean, kind of, but it took a while. We graduated for some time. But enough about me. What about you? Yes.
Excuse me. Earlier you said to expand your awareness to all living creatures. What does that mean?
So that's all living beings. So that means, the definition of what is and is not living, we can go into the scientific basis of that. I've had people say viruses and amoebas, and as we know, viruses are not alive, but but really it's just all living creatures, basically, like all humans, all in Buddhism we have there are multiple realms. Sometimes in certain parts of the cosmology, in certain sects, there are multiple realms. So we're talking like even God realms, hell realms, all beings, and all beings that suffer. So that can, you can think, my cat, my dog, my horse, insects, pretty much anything that lives is going to suffer. That's the first noble truth: is life is dukkha, suffering, and in life there is suffering. And so if a being is alive, they are of the condition to suffer. Whether that's intense, terrible suffering, or like there's raisins in these cookies, that's a whole other thing.
What does it mean though to expand your awareness?
So expand my awareness. So when we are in the meditation, I ask you to bring your awareness to a single person multiple times, right? Yourself. As I expand your awareness, try to become aware of everything around you. When we do standard meditation, we try to be present. We want to listen for sounds, feel the temperature of the room, feel a slight breeze. And expanding awareness to all living beings, just kind of the general knowing. I mean, for me personally, it's just the general knowing that all these things exist and they are suffering. And that's what I think of as saying, instead of like narrowing my self to just the people, even just the people in this room, I'm thinking of everybody outside. I'm thinking of Gary at the grocery store. I'm thinking of, the librarian down the street, Reggie, who helped me out at the DMV today, which is definitely permeating my thoughts today. And also, people you don't know. People suffering on the other side of the world. You may have heard about a tragedy or this and that, or you may have watched a documentary about, village life in Shangri-La. All of those people exist and are all existing in this moment, and they are all alive. Therefore, they are of the condition to experience suffering. And we want to send as much kindness as we can to as many people as we can. All right. Yes, sir.
I found one of the easiest ways for me to do that is instead of extending myself to considering everything that possibly exists, is to just say, what can I do? What do I choose to represent everywhere I go? And then that way, that kind of covers it. Even what we don't know, whatever we encounter, then you say, well, I choose to represent this. I mean, it's one thing for us to practice awareness, right? The skill is awareness. But then, how do we prefer to be with ourselves and with others? Like you're saying, to reduce suffering. And that's when we start, like Metta to me. Metta is like picking a preference. In a meditation, cultivate the skill of just being aware of things, detached but aware of them. But then it's kind of, okay, who do I prefer to engage? And this is an example of like something that's more harmonious, of supporting yourself and others, of loving kindness. So it's almost like picking, what do I prefer to represent? And this is one of the ones advocated, loving kindness to all beings. And then if I just favor that and choose to represent that everywhere I go, that's how I do it. That way it's just, what am I doing? What do I have to give regardless of what I know and don't know?
Thank you. You can share.
Then I have a question.
Okay.
Sometimes, throughout my life, developing the ability to meditate, to just have detached awareness and things like that, I've been very skilled. Other times in my life, things happen that get on my nerves in a way that I have a hard time managing, even just in meditation and awareness. unless I get away from it. I was just wondering what recommendations you may have for, even when you cultivate it, like me, when I've cultivated these skills, to be able to use, and not when things get to me, and other things in life happen that become overwhelming to that skill. What kind of guidelines do you have for how to get back on track and deal with things to get to you in a way you can't manage,
For sure.
or you lose that management for a while and get it back?
For those listening at home, questions around how to get back on track when you've lost your practice. Okay, definitely. Like all things are going to ebb and flow. And I know my practice isn't always perfect. Things are always going to happen. Things are always going to get in the way. But that's why we continue to practice. And as we continue to practice, we'll find that fewer and fewer obstacles become unmanageable. And that's why it's a path that we walk, right? Sometimes the path is rocky. Sometimes a boulder rolls into the path, and we gotta either move the boulder or find a way around, forge a new path around the boulder. But we continue to take a step forward, and even if it's just for a single moment in time, even if it's not, I didn't sit down and tap my bell 3 times and put on my special robe and make my special tea. Even if you just find a moment to sit down somewhere in a park and take a few breaths, you're taking a moment to practice. But as long as you take that moment, and you're still cultivating, I think, I know for me, things get busy, things get crazy. Work schedules are fluctuating. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I guess I'm meeting at the temple tonight. No, I knew ahead of time, but you just have to find the space for it. And if you want to find the space for it, you will. I know life can be super overwhelming. I know how overwhelming life can be. So many challenges, so many things. And it is through practice that we learn to not react and not be overwhelmed by those things. I know in the moment they can seem so crazy and so out of control. But I find that every time I feel that things are out of control, if I just take a moment to even take one deep breath, I'll find myself back in my calm. Even if I'm away from my practice for several days, because I've cultivated it in the past, it doesn't take me very long to get back to where I was. Like that neural pathway is still open, that it's still there. And even if you're away from it, if you're thinking about it, as long as you're aware, it's really just be aware of what's going on. Be aware of, it's been 6 days since I meditated. I should make some time for that. Cultivating this practice didn't happen for me overnight. It was a conscientious effort for me to make time and make space. I work shift work, and because I do that, I don't necessarily fit into the schedule of most places. Most places are geared around 9 to 5. Nights and weekends are not when I'm most available, but I choose to make time for those things, despite the obstacles. And so I think when we find ourselves overwhelmed and thinking that we just don't have the time, that is when we should focus and make the time to practice. Find a place to practice, figure it out. And once we do that once, it becomes easier the next time, and easier the next time, and easier the next time, and eventually overwhelm. At least that's the idea. In an ideal world, but as long as we come back and keep trying and keep practicing, we're doing what we need to be doing, I think, in terms of Buddhist practice, at least as far as in my opinion. But I think on that, I'm going to close tonight. Thank you, everyone, for being here and participating in practice. And thank you all for your questions. If you're comfortable, please bring your hands. Join palms. May any merit gained from our practice here today be transferred to all beings in all directions. May they be safe. May they be happy. May they be healthy. And may they live with ease. Before we all take off today, our host Marcy has an announcement.
Hi, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Marcy, and I'm tonight's host. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have recovery sanghas that meet several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program meets every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and program every day, and everything we offer here is always free. We have a full schedule that is on our website and also posted on the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book that you like, feel free to borrow it and bring it back whenever you're done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushions before you head out, and if a few of you could stay behind to close and latch the windows, that would be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you again. Thank you.
Also, if anyone would like to join us July 19th, we'll be marching in the Pride Parade. So if you'd like to join us, please RSVP on the website. Most importantly, on Monday, we're doing park cleanup. We'll meet in the park. That is something that the Dharma Temple is pledged to ad infinitum, like until the end of us, I guess. But I will be there, and I really enjoy it. So please join us on Monday, the 21st, to clean up the park. Also, RSVP on the website. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, everyone, who joined us at home.
What was your name?
Nice.
What was your